vanishes to history.
What's up, good people? And welcome, Jamie Hoyle. Other side.
What's up, guys?
Craig.
Well, for me, it's right here.
It is? Oh, you're pointing at me.
No, I'm pointing at you.
No.
You're pointing at Garrett.
Yeah, you're pointing at me.
Really?
Other hand, yeah.
For me, he's right above me to the right. That's wild. Anyway, don't worry about it.
Jamie's back for right now. He's caught up on all the preseason games. He watched the game today against the Rams, and the three of us are here to talk about it. So, Jamie, first of all, welcome. Thanks for coming back and joining us today.
Thanks, guys. It's good to be back. Just a one-off for now, but had a free afternoon. Was able to actually watch the game live, and kind of excited to talk to you guys about it. So
yeah,
glad to be able to pop in.
All right,
It's like riding a bike, man.
What?
It's like riding a bike.
Yep. All right, so let's jump right into it, and let's talk about the starters, because we got a series from the starters on offense, and then we got a little bit on defense as well. So let's start with offense. Jamie, talk to me. How was your feeling about the first offensive drive?
I thought it was pretty solid. I mean, we saw a couple good throws from Herbert. We saw some really good protection with the starting offensive line minus Slater. They ran the ball reasonably well, I think, on that first drive. And that big throw to KLS was just a work of art. Just a perfect throw down the field, a big strike. And you could tell they were looking to push the ball down the field and test that defense deep based on the way they threw the ball to QJ and KLS in that first drive.
Yeah, beautiful. Big catch by KLS. We saw, I mean, we're going to have to get to what happened to Quentin Johnston on that drive, but during that play, saw Trey Pipkins with a pretty nice pancake on the outside, which was pretty nice. And then we saw Ladd McConkey get involved, get open in the middle, kind of found the open spot in the zone, sat down, and then was able to collect some yards after the catch. And then Omarion Hampton had a nice little run there between the tackles. It was a 3rd and 18, but showed some nice power, broke a few tackles. It was a nice little showing from Hampton. It was the only one, but a nice little run from him.
Yeah, so not a whole lot to glean because it was one drive, but absolutely same thing. So basically touching on the same thing the guys did. Herbert had some really nice throws. Got to see what it looks like to have quality QB play in. Well, there was some more later on, but when we're talking about the receivers and getting them more involved, that play, how long was that pass to KLS? Was it 41 yards?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, beautiful pass. Beautiful ball placement, and you definitely want to give the protection a shout out there. I mean, I know the Rams weren't playing all their ones. I think on the defensive line, it might have been majority backup guys, but still just take it for what it's worth. They were able to keep Herbert clean, with the exception, I think, of maybe one play where there was some pressure and he had to get out of the pocket, and it went for a loss. But outside of that, I just want to say that I love the way Omarion Hampton runs. We're talking about someone that you're not going to take down on first contact. The leg drive is amazing. The type of power he runs with, it looks like he does a really good job at finding his landmarks off the snap and getting to his spots. Even when there's nowhere to run, he still creates yardage. And as a running back, that's absolutely something you have to have in your bag, whether that be because you're super elusive or you just run with a ton of power. He has a little bit of wiggle, but his claim to fame is going to be his ability to run between the tackles and produce through contact. So everything that I saw based on just like that, short few snaps that were available to us, it looks decent right now. So just something for them to build off of for the remainder of the preseason. I don't know if they're going to play again or what, but it would have been nice to get maybe like a second series, but I kind of understand why they didn't after some of the events that took place did, and maybe it kind of sort of deterred them from going any further.
It kind of felt like as soon as QJ went down, where they got to bring out a cart, he's not moving. He went picket fence. Is that the term they use when you're concussed? And
he was,
it was scary.
He was rigid.
Yeah. That you basically just pull the cord on everybody. But no, they finished out the drive. But man, a tough, whether it was tipped or not, to get it on his hands, not be able to bring it in, and that late hit afterwards. I mean, all of it was just bad. because you'd hope to keep. You talked about how Harbaugh wanted to make sure that they didn't have anybody. They didn't want to do the scrimmage with the Rams because they weren't healthy enough. Then they play their starters in the game, and then it just felt like QJ went down. Gilman ends up going down for a little bit. KLS went down for a second, came back, but there was just injury after injury. But QJ serious.
Yeah, QJ's hit was bad. How they did not throw a flag on that, I'm not sure. He got hit above the shoulders, crown of the helmet, and the side of his head, and it was super late. I mean, the ball had already been tipped. It was clanked off of QJ's hands. Plays basically over, and he comes over and hits him late above the shoulders and knocks him out cold. Just totally unnecessary. Looked pretty dirty to me. And got to feel bad for QJ. So hopefully he's able to bounce back and he's ready for week 1. But that was a pretty bad shot. Anytime you see somebody on the field just go rigid like that, it's scary, really scary.
I mean, all things considered, just like Jamie mentioned, it was very clear that he had no chance of the ball. It ricocheted off of him. The play was going to be over. It was a super unnecessary hit. And at the very least, we talk about NFL and league safety and how they pick and choose how they want to enforce those things. He was defenseless, like by the very literal definition of the word. There was nothing he could have done to protect himself at that point. And the fact that no flag came out was fine. And I see people calling it a clean hit. I'm going to have to go back and see it to see exactly where the placement was. Jamie, I will absolutely take your word for it. I'm not, debating that. But at the end of the day, the hit itself was completely unnecessary. That's flag worthy on its own. Dude was totally defenseless. No way to essentially shield himself whatsoever or brace for contact at all.
Yeah, I think if you look at initial contact, the initial contact was right around the shoulders. It was like shoulder to shoulder, but he led with the crown of his helmet and he hit him like right below the ear with the crown of his helmet. There was clear helmet to helmet contact. So if you just stop watching the play at initial contact, you're like, oh, what's the big deal? He hit him in the shoulder. But it's the follow through. And again, it's the timing of plays over. It's been tipped. There's no chance of making a play. QJ's coming down. He's airborne and he's coming down. He hasn't even hit the ground yet. And he takes that shot. It's totally unnecessary. There's no reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a tough one. I think they were saying he ended up getting up, right? You guys saw people in the Discord
believe
were kinda...
he walked off under his own power, but then I later saw him being carted back to the locker room. But
yeah, I think
I'm almost certain he walked off, and then just abundance of caution, they carted him off. So I'd be shocked if he doesn't get ruled to have had a concussion.
Yeah. So then defense comes on and it was not. I mean, we saw some pretty throws from Herbert and some pretty good offensive line play. And then defense comes on, and I mean, they just got dog walked down the field on that first drive.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Really? You're going to say dog walk? Yeah.
Literally.
St. Juice gives up a TD where he whiffs on that press of the line, which is just, I mean, that's high school football economics. I mean, that's stuff you work
economics.
on day one. So, I mean,
DB 101.
DB 101. So really bad start against the first team defense against Stenton Benson, no less. So not a great showing. And then Alohi Gilman, he blew up a wide receiver early and got a run stop at the line of scrimmage, and then gets injured and then goes back to the locker room. Comes back on the sideline though, out of his gear and everything, but still, I mean, it was just not a good showing for the defense.
Nothing like popping off against a guy because he was going back and forth with someone, and then like 3 or 4 plays later getting hurt. Like that's the worst.
It
can't be that dude.
It was Xavier Smith. Every time he caught a ball, he'd get up talking shit to somebody.
Yeah.
And there was even the play before he got hurt. There was a play where Smith caught the ball and he got up and he headbutted Gilman face to face, like face mask to face mask. And you could see Gilman like pull back as the official walked up, like, whoa, I didn't do anything. But every time he caught a ball, Smith got up, jaw-jacking with somebody, talking crazy shit. So,
yeah. What? Anything else? You guys got any other takeaways? First team defense?
I would just say
Go ahead,
that
Jamie.
while they've gotten bigger on the defensive line, I don't think they've gotten better on the defensive line. And I think that's where a lot of the issues are coming. There's not a lot of pressure. The guys on the inside aren't doing a whole lot to stop the run. They've got some bodies on the defensive line, excuse me, but I don't think they've gotten any better on the defensive line. And that's a bit of a concern.
So what I'm thinking is if we're looking at it from a more macro perspective, the size helps them as the games go on. I think it benefits them more the longer the games go because they have those bigger bodies that can wear on the offensive line potentially and hold up against the run. But like you mentioned, there isn't anyone that's going to be consistently getting penetration in the backfield. I would say Deshaun Hand is probably going to be the best bet. If Caldwell continues to ascend, he might be your other option there, but they still don't have like that true interior penetrator on the defensive line. What scares me is the lack of freaking pass rush, man. Like, I get it. All things considered, there was no Khalil Mack today. There was no Derwin James, who's often used as the pass rusher from that big nickel spot. But there has to be someone that can make a difference. I mean, see, this is what happens. I feel bad when I get attached to someone that shows themselves and then suddenly, like a week later, disappears. Who's my guy? Forget his name already.
Caleb Murphy.
Bridges.
Caleb Murphy. No, it's Murphy. Murphy did a pretty decent job. No, yeah. Let's not mention that name.
That's your guy.
So Murphy did a complete. No, don't put Bridges on me. I had nothing to do with that. Murphy has been a standout player throughout preseason for sure, especially last week. But this time around, it was essentially I saw him set a pretty solid edge, but as far as getting after the QB, there was next to nothing. I mean, no one did. And this was one of my concerns in the offseason in general was how were they going to manufacture pass rush? Because Thule's more of an effort guy. Khalil, at some point, Father Time is going to catch up. Bud Dupree, and then outside of that, you draft a guy who right now no one seems to know what he's going to be. He was already only going to be one of those guys that got up in a specialty role as a pass rusher. But just overall, the defense wasn't anything to write home about. I mean, they bowed their neck up in the red zone a couple times. And of course, preseason or first ballot Hall of Famer Tony Jefferson does what he does because that's his thing. But outside of that, early that first defense was just not anything to be proud of. And hopefully they find a way to get that shored up. It looks like they're going to have to do more to manufacture pressure as opposed to getting home with just 4. And it's not ideal. It's not the way you want to like live and die with playing defense and trying to get your QB off of the spot and minimize these easy throws. But Stetson Bennett had all day in the pocket to throw. And Bennett's not a fantastic quarterback by any means. But, I mean, they made him look like vintage Aaron Rodgers today.
Yeah, I mean it's the same issue they had last year with the pass rush, right? I mean, Thule's a guy who gets home with max effort. Mac was decent last year, not the guy that we've come to expect him to be. Seems like he might be starting to slow down. They don't really have, outside of Mac, and even he's questionable, they don't really have somebody who's going to line up one-on-one and win on a consistent basis. Thule kind of needs to be schemed to the quarterback, or he needs a quarterback to hold the ball for a while so he can win with effort. Dupree, he'll flash every once in a while, but they really don't have anybody to lean on right now. And if they're not going to get pressure from the interior and they're not going to get pressure from the edge, that's a little concerning.
Kyle Kennard is as well as making reference to, but I mean, he's working through something apparently, and in the games that we've seen him in, he's done absolutely nothing. So that's not encouraging at all. Again, it's going to be a question mark once they get into the season because that's an important part of your defense. You have to be able to find a way to get home with 4 in today's NFL, because if you're sending additional guys, good quarterback's going to pick that off. They're going to spot where the pressure is going to come from. You might have to simulate some pressures and drop guys back in coverage. But again, those are all smoke and mirror defenses. You can't live off of those. So I was a little concerned about it before, very concerned at this point, because again, taking into account that there was no Khalil Mack, no Derwin James, still, that's 2 guys. And one of them is often asked to do multiple things. He's not a regulatory pass rusher. You can't just lean on Khalil Mack.
So a little update from Mike R., who says Quentin Johnston suffered a concussion, according to Jim Harbaugh. Johnston was sent to the hospital for further evaluation. Harbaugh called it as a precaution. So I haven't seen that yet, but that checks out. Definitely the
makes
concussion
sense.
part.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it's smart to send him out there just in case. But did T.R. Tart play today?
Yes.
He did?
Yeah, he was out there with the starters. I think it was Hand and Tart who were the two primary interior defensive linemen when the starting defense came out.
Yeah, I didn't see
he's
much
the
of it.
one guy that you kind of hope can figure out a way to provide some pressure inside. I think that's kind of what they're leaning on.
So we saw Herbert early on, and then came Heineke, and then came Trey Lance, who seems like Trey Lance now kind of cemented as that QB2. Heineke, whether they think they want to keep a third quarterback or they want to entice another team to trade him off, I don't know. But, Heineke was off today, threw behind a couple wide receivers, just not very accurate, while Trey Lance had another strong showing. Got it done with his arm, with his legs, and clearly had a better control of the offense than Heineke did. Basically, same offensive line, same receiving core, and they flowed so much better with Lance than they ever did with Heineke today or the week before.
Yeah, I think Lance is really the story of camp so far. To be where he was when they signed him, and now be the clear-cut quarterback 2 right now, in my opinion, anyway. He, like you said, Garrett, he's got a command of the offense that you just don't expect for somebody who's in his first year in the scheme. And he just looks like he knows exactly what he's supposed to be doing out there. He's poised, he's collected, he's getting the ball out on time, throwing the ball accurately. When he takes shots down the field, he puts the ball right where it needs to be, so only his guy can catch it. He knows when to extend plays or pick up, create with his legs. He's been a lot of fun to watch. He's been much better than I expected him to be. I would not have really expected him to outplay Heineke in the preseason, and he's done that by leaps and bounds. Kid deserves a lot of credit, and I think the coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for the work they're doing to him to make him confident and put him in a position to succeed.
Say it again. I think he's in pole position for QB2 spot, and I also want to give credit to, as Jamie just mentioned, the coaching staff and development, because good coaches go a long way. We're talking about a guy with limited experience, both in college and in the NFL, who nobody really understood why the Chargers, made a play for. But now you're seeing, and I continue to say this, he's just a fit for what Greg Roman wants to do offensively. This is not a team, or should I say an offense or a scheme, that's going to be predicated on throwing the ball. You have Justin Herbert, so they're going to do more of it than what you would traditionally see in a Greg Roman offense. But what you do want to have is someone who's mobile that can make you right either on bad play calls or when a play's broken or there's just good coverage down the field. And what you saw today was as soon as Lance got in, the offense was immediately sparked. And, he continued to keep plays alive with his legs. The ball placement is what's been really stand out for me. I didn't know he had that. I know that he had the arm strength, but his throws used to be very, very erratic. You look at the box score and he was 7 for 15, but that in no way tells the story. He got let down on quite a few throws. There were guys that were dropping balls. Like I counted at least 3 to 4. And it was just like solid on the money plays. The other thing that really stands out to me is the rapport that he's building with these young wide receivers. Now, granted, he won't be the primary QB, of course. I mean, unless something were to happen to Herbert, God forbid.
Let's not speak that into existence.
No, of course. But you feel okay with the fact that you have a young QB behind him that doesn't look flustered whatsoever. He doesn't look like the moment's too big for him. And that says a lot. When you think about the last time we saw Trey Lance in preseason, the fact that he comes over to the Chargers and Harbaugh and company are able to kind of get him collected, get him to understand the scheme, but also make him feel comfortable, complete command and poise on the field, never looks out like the play is too big for him and he doesn't know where to go with the ball. I said this last week. Even when the play breaks down, you can always tell when a quarterback isn't super comfortable. When they look to run, it's just, okay, how can I get out of this? And what can I do with my legs to make this play work? He's still looking downfield to get rid of the ball. So he's still looking for receivers. He hasn't given up on a play just because he has either been moved off of his spot or option 1 or 2 aren't open. He's still moving around with a purpose, but he also doesn't hesitate to take off. And as you can see, he has the athleticism to get beyond the second level into the secondary, and guys can't catch him. So kudos to the coaching staff for everything they're doing with Trey Lance. And again, looking at the box score, it doesn't tell the story. If you watch the flow of the game, once he got in, the offense still wasn't perfect, but there were big plays and drives were consistent. I mean, you're not seeing a ton of 3 and outs with him. Get to third down and you're kind of accustomed to the Chargers kind of spindling out just due to the type of plays that they call offensively and because they're more of a run-centric team. But with Trey Lance, it's all still open. And it gives me hope for Herbert, actually, because I think in a way, Herbert's watching what Lance does and might make him feel a little bit more comfortable in utilizing his legs when he sees what the young kid is doing with his when things aren't really working the way they should, because we know Herbert is a very underrated athlete as well. So maybe this gives him a little bit more of a push to, use his wheels also. Looking forward to that.
Yeah, when we saw Heineke in, by the way, speaking of the box score, that when you guys were talking about the touch, that throw he made towards the end of the game to Dale Von Campbell down that sideline where Campbell didn't even know where the ball was.
Oh my God.
I mean, that couldn't have been put any more perfect.
Yep.
Led him to the sideline over his back shoulder. I mean,
I have no idea how that was miscommunicated. Like you ran a go and then you just stopped running it. But he was still looking for the ball. That's what was confusing about it.
Yeah.
Like you're running the route. You clearly know that there's a possibility the ball is going to come to you, but that's what happens. And it's like one of those Herbert things. Players always say this. No matter what option you are on the route, run it full on, because Herbert can put the ball on you no matter where you are. Even if you're option 4 in the progression, run your route all out because you just never know if it's coming to you. It just looked like he didn't expect it to come to him, so he just quit on it. And that would have been the dagger that sealed the game.
I think that happened to Campbell twice in the game, didn't it? Was it Campbell or was it Johnson? There was somebody else who ran a very similar route down the same sideline, and Lance laid it out for him, and he never even looked for the ball. He just pulled up and stopped, and the ball wound up being like 10 yards past him. I think it might have been Campbell.
Could have been
earlier in the game.
He ended up having like 3 targets today.
2 of them were drops.
But when we saw Heineke and we saw him throw a ball that was a little bit behind KLS, who short-armed it, admittedly, dropped it, and then ends up going down. But Heineke led KLS into 2 different DBs on that throw. He was not helping his wide receivers out at all. And then he threw 2 balls behind Trey Harris, who ended up getting open. But then when you saw Trey Lance come in, it was like night and day. We saw Trey Harris, like he had a few good catches, but one of which he got right out of his break, turned around, and that ball was on him,
right on him
from Trey Lance. Perfect throw, great timing, and the wherewithal for Trey Harris to go down and get that ball was impressive. They hit him on a quick slant, like right after that, a couple throws later for a first, and then that throw down the sideline to Trey Harris, I mean, was beautiful. That body control to get 2 feet down and complete the process. And we saw the same thing with KLS.
Well, KLS put the ball right where it had to be, perfect. Either it's being caught or they're going out of bounds. Like absolutely perfect. And the touch that he didn't show in week 1 was there on both those throws. Just dropping it in a bucket right over the shoulder. I think Trey Harris deserves a call out too, because he's been taking some heat for being kind of up and down in practices and not showing up in preseason games.
He's a bust, Jamie. Apparently, it's what I keep seeing. I keep hearing he's a bust.
But he came up big on, I think, 3 third down, like 3rd and long,
at least 3
plus. And one of them, I think it's the one that Garrett was talking about. He ran such a beautiful route where he broke in, kind of planted his foot, leaned into the corner, and the corner backed off because he was expecting to go inside. He just snapped it off outside and made that catch on 3rd down. I mean, so many good routes, and you could just tell Lance trusts him. He's looking at him on 3rd down. He knows exactly where he's putting the ball, and the ball's out on time. Whereas with Heineke, it seems like the ball is consistently late and it's sailing on him. He didn't look comfortable, where Lance looked like he'd been back there for 10 years.
And I think it might have been 3 targets in a row to Harris from Heineke, if I'm not mistaken. 2 of them, or it was 3 in total. I'm not sure if they all came consecutively, but the 2 that he missed were all high and behind him. But that was how he was missing all night. It was high and either too far ahead or high and behind. but everything was high for the majority of these passes. And I mean, again, hopefully tonight, and I get it, we're still going to hear stuff about it, I'm sure of it, but hopefully the performance from Harris tonight kind of satisfies some of the detractors. And don't talk to me about it being a preseason game, because it's the same people that were criticizing him for not showing up in the first two. So just keep the same energy. It's all preseason, we get it, but this is a guy who showed up tonight because the opportunities were there. It looked like they made a concerted effort there, specifically in like the second quarter, to target him. And we saw what the difference was. It's a guy that can move the chains on third down. But what really caught my attention is I think it's kind of weird that they seem to get the ball more to KLS in contested situations down the field right now than they do Harris. When Harris is the bigger body, KLS definitely can make you some of those acrobatic grabs, but Harris has done that and proven that, at Ole Miss as well. So it's interesting to see him be more of the chain mover, but we all know that KLS is going to be more of the explosive player when we're talking about just one-on-one down the field. It seems like more of those opportunities do go to KLS than they do Harris, even though we did see Harris get one. I mean, it got down to the 1 yard line. That's what he scored. He scored on that catch. But fantastic grab. The way that he tracked the ball, got possession, dragged his toes, and was able to haul that in. I mean, it's just high-level wide receiving play. And regardless as to whether or not it's in the preseason, that was a fantastic catch. Between he and KLS, you're seeing some of the type of athleticism and receiving prowess that you felt like this team's been missing since Mike Williams left last year. Like, of course, you're looking for that downfield threat that can make the big plays, and it looks like they have two of those guys now.
Yeah, they were excellent. I saw something before we got on that Herbert went to KLS and said there was more to come. That he's already got confidence in him after that big catch which was a frozen rope from Herbert. That was unbelievable. It was so good to see Herbert slinging it again. So it felt like Quentin Johnston's injury was pretty rough. I mean, it was initially, but it seems like he was up and walking and talking and able to go to a hospital for a precaution. But with Johnston going down, it's an opportunity for KLS and Trey Harris, and they both put it on him today. It was a great job from both of them, and kind of a coming out party for both of them. I know KLS had a game, but was a little bit quiet last week, and then here we go. We saw some real flashes of what these two could do. So
you can kind of see the roles that they have in mind for him too, with Harris kind of being that guy in the middle of the field, third and medium, third and long on the slants and the deep ends and the deep outs, and KLS being the deep threat. You can kind of see those roles kind of taking shape for them.
Yep. All right, let's talk about these running backs, because we talked about Hampton a little bit, but we saw some Vidal today. We saw some Sanders who punched in after that Harris touchdown. Talk to me about how you're feeling about the running game so far, Craig.
So it was a little bit of a slog today. You didn't see a whole lot, and really and truly, I think it can be attributed to the fact that the ones didn't play a ton, because we saw the same thing in other games where the interior of the offensive line just doesn't get very much surge off of the ball. I do find it interesting, though, because I feel like they may be trying to hide Rocket Sanders a little bit. I thought he'd get more carries today than what he did. It seemed like Vidal was more of a focal point, and it's almost as if, I think they know what Kamani can be. Like, you have a pretty decent idea of that, but I feel like there's a very special place in Jim Harbaugh's heart for Rocket Sanders, and it almost feels like they're doing their best to play keep away. It's rare that you see somebody that's 6 feet, 230 pounds with the ability to get the edge the way that he does. Like I said before, same top speed as Amari and Hampton. He doesn't run with the same physicality as Hampton, but for someone of that size, he's pretty nimble. That was exactly what I was about to say. Wiggle. Like last week, there were a couple plays where you saw jump cuts that someone his size shouldn't be able to make. Imagine, like, Michael Turner was a harder runner, I think. But imagine if Michael Turner had a little bit more bounce, an ability to be laterally quick. I feel like that's kind of sort of what you get from Raheem Sanders. And he showed you, he had one reception for 8 yards, but it was a nice grab in the middle of the field. And that was one of the question marks. Like, great, he's a good traditional back, but can he be a receiver? And last week you saw him catch a contested wheel route where he had to adjust and make a catch that wasn't easy by any means. I mean, the ball placement was great. It was away from the defender, but this week you see him wide open in the middle of the field. And sometimes it's harder to catch those wide open balls than it is the covered ones. And, I think it was like a first down catch that he got for 8 yards. So it was second and short after that. It feels like they're doing their best to keep him hidden. And again, they paid the dude $60K as a UDFA. I don't think as a whole, it tells you the full story about the running back room, but Jamie mentioned this in a text we were talking before the game. Well, during the game, this is a very balanced running back room. You feel pretty confident about the guys that are in it. Kamani Vidal didn't have a very good game today. 10 carries, 16 yards. A lot of that has to do with the blocking, but he runs very hard. He's someone who's improved in his pass blocking as far as PBU blitz pickup, BPU blitz pickup. He excelled at that aspect of his game at Troy, and it looks like it's rounding into form in the league. Amari Hampton, we saw what we saw from him. Like I mentioned early on, dude looks like juggernaut running the ball. First dude does not take him down. He's got the speed and explosiveness, not really wiggly per se, but he has a little bit of the ability to make jump cuts and get out in space as well. I just feel like as a whole, the running back room is in really good hands, regardless of what their rotation is. And this is actually with missing who was, I guess, supposedly supposed to be your RB1 and Najee Harris. So when he gets back into the mix, you got a lot of different options, and you can run with similar running styles. Or if you want to be able to do more outside zone and get guys to, get your linemen out and pulling and things like that and power, and you just want to affect the edges, you've got the running backs with the ability to do that. I'm not sure what the plan is for Nyheim Hines. I still feel like he's kind of on the borders. Yeah, I get why he makes sense. I mean, because he also gives you special teams. Okay, he muffed punts last week. He didn't muff any today. Good for you. But he's probably going to be he would be more of your third down receiving option. But you still got guys that can do it. And also this offense does not utilize running backs as receivers very often anyway. So you can't really, point to him as being someone that would be a huge contributor in that way. But overall, I feel like today the running back room didn't look great. But moving forward and going into the season, I'm pretty confident in what I've seen from some of the guys that I think will be sticking around. And I can't say that I felt like that in a very long time about this Chargers team.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really promising running back room. I think there are some complementary running styles in there. They all seem to be handling blitz pickup pretty well. There's a couple of good sets of hands in there. I think if you look at Hampton and you look at Sanders, you can kind of see the makings maybe as soon as next year of a really, really nice two-headed monster in the backfield. They just seem like you put them together and they're a complete back. They complement each other really well. They both offer some explosiveness. They both offer some power. They can both catch the ball out of the backfield. There's a lot of things to work with there. And I think this is a group that's really deep, and I think more talented than anybody probably thought coming into camp. It might be one of the deeper position groups in camp. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if Vidal played so much today because they're trying to help him put something on tape because he's not going to make the team. I think Haskins makes a team because of his ties to Harbaugh and because of the special teams value.
Yeah.
And he's looked more explosive. He's still not super explosive, but he's looked more explosive. I don't know if he lost weight or what, but he looks like he's got a little bit more juice in the preseason this year. And I think Sanders makes a team because he's just too good to risk cutting him and trying to put him on the practice squad. So depending on what happens with Harris, maybe Harris winds up on IR, to start the season, depending on what's going on with his eye, and you break camp with all four backs, and then maybe Vidal's got something on tape when it's time to bring Harris back. But it's one of the better running back rooms I think they've had in maybe a decade. It's pretty deep and pretty talented.
For Najee, is IR spelled I-E-Y-E-R? Is that where you go?
That's a low blow.
Can help it.
But yeah, I mean,
themselves.
Sanders has been nice. He last week we saw some of that beautiful ability to get to the outside. Broke outside. He broke 2 tackles today to get a first down, punched it in after that Trey Harris bomb. I got concerns about Kamani Vidal. He was more of a one-cut runner in college, and now he's stopping his feet behind the line of scrimmage. Feels like his vision is lacking this preseason. I know the offensive line isn't really much to write home about, but it just felt like he had a lot more confidence his rookie season than he does this season. So I could see a world where he doesn't make this roster. With the way Rocket Sanders is playing, and we know Haskins is going to make this roster. They signed Najee Harris. Hampton obviously is the RB1 going forward. You know, if Najee isn't playing, I could see Vidal making the roster, but I could see where they keep those 4, where it's Sanders, Haskins, Najee, and Hampton, and then maybe trying to get Vidal on the practice squad or something for later. But it feels like right now he got twice as many carries as Rocket Sanders did today, and he averaged like just over 1.5 yards. It was bad today. So it just feels like with each week it's not getting more promising, which is a little concerning. So I say, he's probably on the bubble right now, and it feels like Sanders is kind of squeaked in there as that RB4.
I would say for sure that you have a higher probability of letting Vidal go and being able to get him on the practice squad than you would Raheem Sanders. And I think I might have talked about this. I don't remember if it was on the show, maybe it was on Twitter. But when you look at Sanders now, he is more reminiscent of the Rocket Sanders you saw at Arkansas in 2022 when he was first team All SEC. But we're talking about a dude who came back from major injury in 24 and still was second team All SEC after he transferred. But he looks more like the 2022 version of himself with the explosiveness. And I think he's starting to round into form now, coming back from that injury. So the Chargers got somebody on a discount that, for all intents and purposes, should have actually been drafted by another team. And they were able to get him as a free agent. And now they get the opportunity to reap the benefit from it. I fully believe the reason why they paid them what they did is because they have that belief in him, and they thought maybe he could regain form. And now, I mean, he's going to pay dividends. I truly believe that. And Jamie already mentioned it as far as like a complimentary running back. You sign Najee for a year. If he misses a few games, comes back, great. They can run him into the ground, let him go after this year, and you've already got your built-in replacement there. So Rocket Sanders almost feels like a lock to me to make the roster unless something like ridiculous were to happen in the next week or two. And 9 times out of 10, you're looking at a Kamani Vidal who finds himself on the outside looking in, and maybe just kind of based on what he's shown, it's nothing spectacular. But you can probably squeeze him onto the practice squad. So that would be I think that's the direction they're going to move in, but we'll see.
I guess the question is, Najee signed for 1 year and he's already hurt, and nobody seems to know what's going on. I mean, the team knows what's going on with him, but nobody else knows what's going on with him. So the question is,
it's been, how long has it been? Since July 4th, right?
It's been
August 16th, and we have not seen him without something over his eyes. So
he just started running this week.
Right. But with glasses on, though, it's not like he's running without a visor and anybody could see what's going on.
Yeah. So I guess the big question from like a long-term roster building perspective is, do they need Najee? With what they've done with the room right now, they're not going to cut him, but do they need him? Because I think the room is probably in a lot better shape right now than they thought it would be when they signed him. Signing him felt like we need somebody. Let's go out and get Najee. And now they have so many more options that maybe he's not as critical to the room as they thought he was. And if he's not back soon, or if he's not able to stay on the field, maybe he doesn't last the year because of what they've got going on in that room now.
Well, Rocket was the wild card, I believe. I don't think they would, going into the draft, thought they would have an opportunity to grab a back like him. And I think he maybe changes the calculus a little bit, and it makes it a little bit easier with what Najee's dealing with. So I get it. It turns into a very loaded running back room when Najee returns, and when we're just talking about fits and running styles, they can make all of that work. But yeah, it puts them. It's a good problem to have. when you've got this many backs that you'll be able to utilize, that maybe the one that you signed becomes somewhat expendable.
Sure. Yeah. I'm just curious what we're going to see going forward, because I have no idea what's going on with Najee, nor
What
does
you're going to
anybody
see
else.
going forward.
Yeah.
You didn't try to do that, but it was dope.
You know,
Bars,
where I was going.
unintentional bars, man. I love it.
and no, it was intentional. And so, and then in terms of Naheem Miller-Hines, now it's a super cool story that 2 years out of football, he can come back and at least like compete. But after Luke Grimm today and his punt return touchdown, where he showed off that speed and it was blocked pretty well. And then Miller-Hines, excuse me, fumbles 2 times last week. It just feels like, you have Darius Davis as your returner. You have KLS, which seems like he'll be the backup if anything happens with Davis. So if you've got, it just feels like those are the guys that are going to be on the 53. Miller-Hines' only spot was going to be, can he be the backup? Can he give you enough on the ground, maybe beat out Raheem Sanders, and also give you enough on special teams that he's worthy of being one of the last spots on the roster if Sanders doesn't make it? But that's all gone now. Sanders is definitely above him, probably above Vidal now. We're looking at RB4 for Sanders at the moment. And Miller-Hines is doing, pretty much nothing anymore. I mean, he had 2 returns around 20-ish yards. And so that whole, like, he had a narrow escapeway to make the roster, and that's all but closed now. And then with Luke Grimm, who, returns a touchdown and gives you a little bit as a receiver, that feels like the easy young practice squad stash at the moment. And Miller-Hines just, is kind of out of the picture now.
You saying Luke Grimm, but I call him the ghost of Tim Dwight. He's the ghost of Tim Dwight. I love that. That was an awesome return. It made me think of Tim Dwight. No, it's not because he's a white guy. Well, maybe a little bit, but it brought back shades of Tim Dwight. So Luke Grimm's also been someone that stood out, I think, early on in camp, and he provides some of that, slot flexibility, because he's not just a quick guy. He's got some speed to him. So, I mean, you could make a case that Naheem Miller-Hines, there are multiple people that can provide what he does, but the primary thing outside of just being a return guy, he offers you, like I mentioned before, he's more of the third down receiving option. But this is an offense that doesn't normally deploy as running backs as receivers that often. So if you take that out of the equation, and you've already got other people that can handle the return duties and they can secure the ball on punt, then where does he fit?
Yeah. Because you're much more comfortable with those 4 receiving than you would Naheem Hines anyway.
I wouldn't be surprised if they brought him in hoping that he'd have a killer camp and they'd be able to trade him. I don't think he was ever really expected to make the team, unless there was a thought that, hey, maybe he can take punt return duties off of Davis's hands and we can give Davis some more responsibility at wide receiver. But they're in an interesting spot with a lot of these veterans on the team, where they could, if they wanted to pursue it, they could theoretically trade a few of these guys for a late round pick and elevate the younger guy at a few of these roster spots.
Well, now that you mention it, I absolutely believe that they're trying to get another pick back, because right now they currently only have 6 going in the next offseason, I believe. So it makes all the sense in the world to be able to take 1 or 2 of these vets and parlay them into a pick, because we know how much they value those. And right now they're short of what they would want to have in 2026. So yeah, I totally get it, and I can see it happening. Maybe I think Trey Lance was probably something that they expected to be able to do, but now I feel like you kind of have to keep the kid unless someone makes you an offer you can't refuse. But either way, I think they're going to get rid of at least one of these guys to get something back late round for sure.
Yeah, so we mentioned it, but it did kind of feel like Trey Lance and Heineke were going to compete for that QB2 spot, and they were going to kind of hopefully get some team to pick up that third guy who didn't make the roster. So we mentioned that a little bit earlier, but who are the other guys you're thinking that they could flip?
There are a few. One guy that stands out to me in particular with the depth of the room and the way guys are playing behind him are playing is Alohi Gilman. You look at the safety room and you've got Derwin, you've got Molden, who played really well last year, and they just signed to a multi-year extension. Mickens is playing lights out. You've got Kendall Williamson behind them, who's standing out on special teams and flashing on defense. And you've got a veteran in Tony Jefferson who's playing exceptionally well and is probably going to be stashed on the practice squad. So there are a lot of there. I think there would be a lot of interest potentially in Gilman as a multi-year starter at the safety position. He can theoretically play both safety spots. He could contribute on special teams if you need him to. He's in the last year of his deal. He's not super expensive. Like, if it were me, I don't think they'll do this, but if it were me, I would trade Gilman. I would have Jefferson on the roster because I think he's more versatile and more valuable than Gilman is. And I would carry both Mickens and Williamson as
Really
special teams depth, safety depth, and start building out the core special teams with younger players who are going to be here for a while.
Another thing to add to that is availability, because as you can see just from today, Alohi specifically recently has had issues even staying on the field. So that's another one up that they have on. And Jefferson coming back as an old wily veteran, but can still make plays, understands the defense, and is more of a coach for that secondary, specifically those guys in the safety room as well. I think he offers you a little bit more all the way around. And again, he's reliable and you can count on him to be available to play. So maybe somebody does see a need on their team where they're lacking depth at the safety position. You can offload Alohi. No disrespect to him, but I mean, it's just number one, it's a numbers game, but also when you're strategically looking to build out your roster, these are the type of moves you make.
Okay. All right. That's an interesting one. Who else you guys got? Is there another one?
You mentioned Heineke.
Yeah.
Assuming Lance wins QB2, Heineke would be another guy that I would think they'll at least try to trade. There was somebody else I was thinking of earlier in the day, but now I'm drawing a blank. I'm sure it'll come back to me. But
Okay.
yeah, I think my guess is they probably carry 6 corners and 4 safeties, excuse me, more than likely. But maybe they get a 5th safety in there. I don't know. There's a lot of good depth in the secondary this year. A lot of guys with stuff you can't teach, instincts and ball skills and things like that I would think they'd want to hang on to at the expense of guys who have been here for a while.
So, all right. So let's move on to defense because we kind of are starting to move that direction. We talked about Gilman. Craig talked about the preseason Hall of Famer, Tony Jefferson, getting that PBU in the end zone today, turnover on downs. We talked about Deshaun Hand a little bit. We got penetration and a tackle for a loss on a run. Troy Dye got a PBU right after that. But let's talk about the young guys because we saw a lot of RJ Mickens and a lot of Bridges today. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about how you guys are feeling about those two before we move on to other ones.
We don't ever have to talk about Bridges. Feel free if you want to, Jamie. I got nothing. That dude gave up what essentially was a back-breaking play to a 5'9" receiver, and he's 6'2" and change. I got nothing for him anymore. You got completely roasted on last week, giving up a huge touchdown, and then you give this one up. Well, a near touchdown this week, but what eventually led to a touchdown. I got nothing for the dude. Nice guy, I hope. I probably, but crap football player.
I think Mickens is a guy who's put himself solidly in a position to make the team. He's just one of those kids who just knows where he's supposed to be. He gets to where he's supposed to be. He makes plays on the football. He doesn't catch the football, but he makes plays on the football. And he's a reliable tackler. He has a lot of special teams experience as a core special teamer. He just checks a lot of boxes from what you want out of your 4th or 5th safety. I think he needs to be there. I think he's earned that spot. And I think he'd help. I think he's a guy who can pitch in a lot of ways and make the defense better when he's got to be out there, and certainly help replace, somebody on special teams, Jasir Taylor, and make them better too. So he's a guy who definitely stands out to me.
I feel bad for Mickens, man. That's my dude. You dropped 2 picks today. You dropped the second one and then immediately have it followed up by a pick from a 305-pound defense.
I know.
That sucks. Other than that, great game. He's just been consistent. He's just showing up every single week, making plays in the open field as a tackler, getting PBUs, maybe not catching picks. Maybe that's the next level of his game to grow. But this was one of the things that impressed me the most about him as a player at Clemson. The consistency, the open field tackling, always being in the right place at the right time. And as a last line of defense guy, he plays really good in space against the pass. But specifically, if you're one-on-one in the open field and there's a ball carrier to get on the ground, he generally does it. And just overall, the game isn't flashy, but it travels. He produces no matter, what the situation is. You can always count on him to make the play that needs to be made, unless it's intercepting the ball. But again, I'm going to give him a little bit of grace here. Overall, I love what R.J. Mickens brings to the table. And again, he makes players in front of him potentially expendable, a la an Alohi Gilman.
Yeah. Mickens was good today. It sucks that one pick fell through his hands and Presley still caught it.
No.
The second one hit him in the chest, which was so ugly. But a lot of good tackles, and him and Bridges kind of converged on that late incompletion that kind of bounced off the receiver. It was a nice play by Mickens, and Bridges. It just feels like he was always going to be a project, being drafted as late as he was. He was part safety, part corner, not great at either one of them, but was athletic enough and had the size that they thought they could bet on him and stuff around. Fine, but I think he's more of a practice squad candidate at this point. I don't think he's close to getting a roster spot. But we started to talk, you guys mentioned his name, but Jasir Taylor, is working his way off this roster, and I'm happy about it at this point. It's just about that time. That post route TD to Mario Williams was terrible. And then the unnecessary roughness, that face mask in the fourth quarter where he's already dragging Schrader out of bounds, and at the very end rips his helmet off for no reason, was just terrible. And I'm hoping that because Taylor was out there towards the end of that game is kind of a good sign that, some of the better, more talented corners are getting early run so they can get out and then let the guys deeper down the depth chart go. But he's terrible, man. It's about that time. He flashed his rookie season, and then it's just been downhill ever since.
He played the whole game. He was out there with the starters in the slot as well. So that kind of suggests, to be out there with the starters and then be out there with the third and fourth stringers at the end of the game. That suggests to me that he's on the bubble, and they're probably trying to let him put something good on tape before they cut him as well. You mentioned the face mask. You mentioned the post route TD. Did you guys see what he did on that jump ball at the end of the game?
Oh, where he hit it into the receiver's hands?
No, he turned his back on the ball and just sat there and watched the receiver catch it.
I missed that.
He tracked the ball all the way in. It went right over his head, and he turned his back to the quarterback. And it was like he was in awe of the wide receiver, of somebody actually making a good play, which he should be used to by now. But
not familiar with it. Yeah.
Well, he should be used to seeing people do it against him. But
right. But him not actually being the person that does it. Yeah, in awe of an actual good play, right? I get what you mean, though.
He actually looked like he was setting a pick in basketball. He crossed his arms and held his hands together and just stood there and watched the guy make a catch. I don't understand it. He has put enough bad stuff on tape in the regular season and in the preseason that and he's not their guy. They didn't draft him. So you got to think the time is coming. I just really wish that I almost said Bridges, but not Bridges. Rogers had played today because he looked so good last week. And I feel like one more good week, a couple more plays here and there would have just iced the deal. But right now I got to feel like Reed has an inside track on the slot position, or at least backup slot position, depending on what they decide to do with Still. And I would love to see more of Rodgers. Hopefully he's back next week and can play a little bit more, because he's got that length and athleticism and the instincts and the ball skills that you just can't teach. So something fun to work with there.
So it's interesting on that touchdown where Taylor was beaten. I want to say, and I have to go back and look just from first glance, it looked like they were playing cover 3 and there was like a single high up there. So Jalen Jones was late getting over. and Taylor got stacked and beaten on the outside, then to the post. The kicker here is I think they might have gotten caught flat-footed, and I'm not shooting Taylor any bail because he's just a whipping boy by whatever wide receiver he's up against for the most part, so whatever. But that ball was snapped with like a second left in the quarter. It almost felt like maybe they didn't think they were going to snap the ball and got caught and reacted late. Even still, you can't do that. You play through the whistle literally until the end of the quarter, but it just looks terrible. The optics of it are bad. He's basically an abject net negative. Before he was someone who could contribute on special teams. Well, now, that sounds all well and good, but you're seeing guys who are flashing on special teams who can basically do what he does there. And then when you put him on the field as a regulatory defender, it's just big plays all the time. And there's no way to make any excuses for him. I will say this. My prediction is if and when he gets cut, he'll end up being a New Orleans Saint. He'll be playing with the guy who loved him so much, Brandon Staley, and I'll be just fine with that.
He can have him right now.
I know. Take him. I don't think there's any picks worth, but yeah, take him.
I don't care. We'll give you something else to take him away. I would. What you want? I mean, seriously, I'd offer something else up if you're willing to take him.
Maybe those beignet spots that you wouldn't give away last.
I did, man. Check the Discord.
Oh, you did.
Mm-hmm.
So what defensively, obviously the big man interception was fun. Tayron Edwards, and then having him be able to kind of lean in on a hit on Stenson Bennett was pretty fun. There's nothing better than a big man interception.
Man, just let him have the pick, man. Bennett, I get you trying to compete, dude, but come on now. What do you think?
Get out of the way. What are you doing? It's preseason. That's a business decision you got to make. In the preseason, that big man, get out of the way. Anybody else? I know, Tremont Morris-Brash had a really nice play at the end of the game for that almost sack fumble that hit on the incompletion, and then got the stop on that 2-point conversion too, which was nice at the end of that game.
Someone else's name that I saw make a play in the red zone. I'm not sure how he played for the rest of the game. Can't wait to go back and rewatch it. It was Junior Colson actually showed up for a pretty solid stop in the red zone where they kind of stiffened up and stopped the touchdown, because I think the play after was the one that Jefferson made, if I'm not mistaken. But yep, that's one person's tape that I want to go back and rewatch, because of course we're hoping that he continues to develop the strength in the second level of the defense. Marlo Wax is still a name that's being pretty consistent. Again, another linebacker that they're continuing to develop. So I'll make a couple plays, but someone else who's consistent, as a tackler in space. Outside of that, I mean, Nico Reed, of course, more great coverage and a PBU on that last Rams drive. Now, of course, he basically got bodied on that touchdown pass, but I mean, he's 5'9", the receiver, just kind of had him in, height and size, so it wasn't very much he could do there. But overall, he's just put a lot of good tape out there, and this game was another. I mean, it was relatively quiet early on. He wasn't really getting targeted, but there was a play down the sideline. I can't remember who it was to, but it was a go route, and he did something that's really hard to do as a corner. He utilized the sideline as the second defender, and he squeezed the receiver to the sideline. He stayed in his hip pocket. He found the ball and was able to contest the catch on what I think was a third down play. It was either second or third down play. I don't remember what down it was. But after that, I think they were able to get off the field and get the ball back. But just that rep alone tells me, from a technical standpoint and just a natural feel for the position, that he's got what it takes to play in the league. And this is a smaller corner that was playing on the perimeter that was able to do that. He's probably more of a slot guy, but either way, 5'9", 185-ish pounds, playing like that on the perimeter. I'm assuming he was playing to the field. I mean, you wouldn't want a guy like that on the boundary. You want a bigger cornerback doing that. But he's showing me all the traits that an NFL cornerback has to have from a technical standpoint and also feel. So I definitely want to give him a shout out as well.
All right. Jamie, you got anything else you want to add? I think we've hit almost.
I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Yeah. Okay. Craig, anybody else before we get out of here?
One more person. I know we don't talk about kickers, but J.K. Scott, man, come to the front of the congregation. I figured him out. He's fine as long as nothing's on the line. Then he chokes. That last shank punt, was ridiculous. Everything that he does when the Chargers are playing with like a pretty safe lead seems to pan out well for him. He gets really good hang time. That's his thing. Sometimes he can cough and kick a punt. But when you need him to do it, that's when apparently the lights get too bright for him and something like this happens. And I feel like if you go back, you'll find that in instances where there's a close game or an opportunity to close things out, he'll do this. So I'm curious because this is a team that's you don't anticipate is going to score a ton of points regularly. They're going to be playing more close games, and a lot of their wins are going to come down to field position. And you're going to have a punter that you can count on, and especially in the bigger moments. So hopefully this is just another blip and it's not something that's consistent, but I feel like I got you, brother. Prove me wrong moving forward, but I'm almost certain I've seen this from you before at least 2 other times.
I don't want to talk about kickers, so I'm not going to add to that, but I hear what you're saying. That was terrible. All right. Well, Jamie, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate
Thanks for having me, guys.
Anytime you want to come on, you're obviously welcome. And that's it. Make sure you guys subscribe. You never know when Jamie might pop in, so make sure you're watching every week. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.
Oh, did you forget already?
I know. He's like, do I do my line?
Salute, man.